Peace and love, y'all. Coming at you live from outside of space and time. I'm Nyiam. Welcome to the feedback loop. Going live today to go over some world events, remote viewing that went that we did for November for December events. Also, going to talk a little bit about belief systems and how they affect psi functioning, and get into just a little bit on some studies that Dean Radin mentions in his book Real Magic on how belief modulates psi. So stay tuned if that sounds interesting to you. Just hop over this view here. So as you know, my website is thefeedbackloop.info. You can check that out. I got some, practice targets on there for those of you wanting to hone in on your remote viewing skills and things like that. Of course, patreon.com/cryptoviewing is where, I work as an intuitive alongside Dick Algeier, Daz Smith, Edward Reardon, and the wonderful team over at Crypto Viewing, host Dennis Nappy II. And, we use remote viewing to give information on different cryptocurrencies, as well as woo-woo targets, and looking forward at world events, seeing the future. So it's a great experiment that we're doing over there, and it's only possible through the subscribers that allow us to keep doing this, and make a little bit of money so we can actually put time into doing this kind of stuff. So let's get into some world events data that I produced in November, trying to look forward to December. So these were all published in November. And if you're a part of our subscriber base, we talk about these on video the month in advance, but I also have cryptographic hashes that I post on the blockchain that can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this work was produced the month in advance. So let's get into this here. We'll go full screen. So I'll bring in my little face here. So let's start off with this impression. When I do my world events, I usually get into a more relaxed state, almost down into the theta. We call that S5. And my initial impression here was, I saw a person hanging from a elevated structure, kind of like a handrail or something, elevated. And then I saw down below, there were people splashing around in the water. And, when I do these, I get images and sequences of images and impressions that come through. And it soon dawned on me, like, this is a boat or a ship, and it's capsized. So that's a pretty unique story, but, we just record what we get. You can't really think about these things too much. So I got this impression, I put it down. December rolls around, and here's a story that broke. Thailand warship capsizes during storm. A number of people are still missing after a Thai warship capsized during a storm. Video from the Thai Navy shows the ship on its side before it sinks in the Gulf of Thailand. So I'm going to play this little clip with some footage from the event. Yeah, you can see there a bunch of individuals were actually in the water, had to be rescued out of the water. I'm pretty sure there was a few dead or still haven't been found, unfortunately. Never seen a ship capsize event before in my world event, so that was a new one. Oh yeah, I ain't much of a Gregorian calendar kind of guy, but Happy New Year to to everyone out there, celebrating that. I see this in the chat. Yeah, so that was a interesting impression there that, was pretty accurate. I actually used the words ship and capsize in my probes there. And Thailand warship capsizes during storm. Yeah, so that was a interesting one. Here's another one. And this gives a little insight into how this works. Some people are under the impression that remote viewers are omniscient and we just know everything, but that's not true. And it's not even true within the target. Like even when we're on target, we're not omniscient. There's things that we misinterpret. There's things that we don't know. It takes actual effort and kind of like the movement of your point of observation and probing and digging into the target to actually get to know things. It's not just, we don't just know everything. So mistakes can be made, misinterpretations and things like that. And here's a good example of that. So, I close my eyes. I'm anticipating visual imagery for what's going to happen in the following month. And I see this silhouette of a man with a flame behind him. So, I wrote like, what the fuck, a man on fire. And then I started kind of probing into it, and it felt like more like maybe this is like some kind of attack or a demonstration kind of thing. So I sketched that down, and shortly after that, some of these images keep coming, and then I saw a guy pouring gasoline, and or kerosene, and I probed that, and I got the sense like someone's committing arson. So, man, that to me looked like he was on fire, and someone committing arson. So, submitted that, timestamped it. The following, the month came around, and there's this story that broke. Shocking moment. Buckingham Palace gate ablaze before police take down arsonist. And you can see here, there's a man standing. The police officer is actually standing right in front of this flame here. It's kind of silhouetting him. And he's stopping the guy on the right who's was setting the fire. So hopefully you can see, like when I see these images in a quick flash, sometimes it's microseconds, you can get things wrong. You could misinterpret what you see. I thought a person was on fire, but it's actually a person standing in front of a fire, and it was an arson attack. So here's kind of like the two images put side by side, so you can kind of see how that visual information was all there, but I had a bit of a misinterpretation that happened there for a moment. So that was a pretty unique story as well. Moving forward, this one was interesting. I saw a suspension style bridge, and I saw a lot of cars kind of like backlogged. I got the sense of like a traffic jam on standstill, roadblock. And I even saw people coming out of their cars and just standing around on the bridge. So like no one's going anywhere kind of deal. I had sounds of brakes screeching, crashing noises. I had textures of like compacted and compressed metal, like things smashing together. And structures kind of like jutting out on top of each other. So yeah, a bridge event involving a lot of cars crashing, people standing around on the bridge. And this was a story that just happened on the 28th. 200 cars in China kind of smashed into each other in this huge pileup. And it is a suspension bridge in China there. So I try and be very, when it comes to evaluating whether or not I think something is a hit, I try and be very honest with myself. If this wasn't a suspension bridge, then I wouldn't consider this a hit, because I saw this as a suspension bridge, and you can look up the bridge. It does have cables and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll just play this short clip so you can kind of see some of the imagery. You see like cars jutting out on top of each other. I had a lot of impressions of that. Structures stacked on top of each other, compressed metal. And you can see the people standing around. And there's kind of like the side-by-side comparison. Yeah, that was November 25th. I initially posted that. Is there a possibility that sometimes we could be viewing our future feedback? Yeah, I think it's totally possible. Sometimes I've drawn pictures pretty much exact to the target feedback, but the only issue, I guess, that comes with that is there's no sounds and tastes and temperatures and textures within a feedback image. So, it could be a combination of those things. Our philosophy at HRVG is that we displace a portion of our awareness to the target. Does that always happen? I think when if it's a real place and and there's something going on there, I agree that that's what happens. But yeah, there are times where, I'll draw something and it's like pretty much exactly like the image I get in my feedback, which to me, it doesn't matter. Those are all just stupid little explanations that we try and come up with to make sense of all this stuff. I could care less if it was the feedback image or not. All I care about is it good remote viewing or not. That's all that really matters to me. So those were a couple world events that I did. Do you think the suspension bridge could have been from the wires to the right? I'll try and dig up a picture here real quick of the actual bridge that was involved in the incident. Let's see, where's that story? Nope, that's not it. It's this one. Let me see the name of the bridge. I looked this up the other day. Maybe if I just put the bridge in there, images. Yeah, here it is right here. This is the bridge. So yeah, it does have cables. It's just, it was at a different section of the bridge. So yeah, it does have the cables there. That's what really made me call it a suspension style bridge, which it does have that there. So yeah, if that wasn't, because there was a couple other events that happened where there were pileups, like in the U.S. there were a couple car pileups in the ice storm, but those weren't on suspension bridges, so I wouldn't deem that a hit. But this one, I'd call this one a hit. Oh, was I even showing that? I wasn't showing that. Let me show that. Here's the bridge here. This is the bridge that it happened on. So, yeah, it is an actual bridge, yeah. So now let's get into, I wanted to talk about belief and psi. Okay. Um, this is a big thing. There's a lot of ideologies around remote viewing and psi. Can you do this? Can you do that? Is this possible? Is that not possible? And the thing I want to talk about here is that a lot of it has to do with belief, and not in the new agey, airy fairy kind of way, like, just believe in something and it's going to happen. But, a deep rooted belief that would actually cause you to act in a certain way, right? If you don't believe in certain psi functioning, you're probably never going to attempt to do these kind of things. And the skeptics, that's one of the things with the skeptics. A lot of skeptics don't believe in psi, so how would they ever move forward and have an experience with it? They may have spontaneous experiences, but I'm going to go into some stuff here in Dean Radin's book. So I'm going to switch to this top-down view. So if you haven't read this book, you should get it. It's called Real Magic by Dean Radin. Ancient Wisdom, Modern Science, and a Guide to the Secret Power of the Universe. Now, he's a science writer. He's a science writer. But over the years, he started to understand that there's more to this psi stuff than what his colleagues give credit for. So, yeah, I'm going to hop into this and just read a couple little parts here and relate it to remote viewing and different phenomenon that happen. So he talks about the role of belief here and something called the sheep goat effect. So in the early 1940s, psychologist Gertrude Schmidler in the City College of New York proposed that people who don't believe in psi subconsciously avoid psi experience because they don't want to experience them. On the flip side, people who do believe in psi want to see them, so they do. She turned this idea into what she called a sheep-goat hypothesis, where the skeptics are the stubborn goats and the believers are the acquiescent sheep. And, I'm just going to skip forward here, but basically what through the experiments, what they found was that it seemed like innate psi ability alone doesn't explain why some people perform better than others. So if it seemed like belief in psi is one of the main factors. So psychologist Tori Lawrence out of the University of Edinburgh did a meta-analysis of the sheep-goat psi experiments, and these were forced choice experiments. So these experiments weren't remote viewing exactly, but they were forced choice psi experiments. But what he found was 73 reports by 37 different investigators involving more than 685,000 guesses contributed by 4,500 participants, that the overall result was strongly in support of the sheep-goat effect, with believers outperforming disbelievers with odds against chance of over 1 trillion to 1. Lawrence concluded that the results of this meta-analysis are quite clear. If you believe in the paranormal, you will score higher on average in a forced choice ESP test than someone who does not believe. So, belief plays a big role here. And this is kind of, what he's writing about here is kind of very general, just belief in psi in general, but it gets deeper than that. It gets deeper to, can you see in remote viewing? Can you bilocate? All these different questions that people want to know. Can you see letters? Can you see numbers? These are all have to do with belief systems, in my opinion. So in the sum, just as the magical traditions have maintained, belief modulates psi belief modulates psi performance. In other words, if you don't believe in magic, then no magic for you, type of thing. And this is generally speaking, of course. You could have spontaneous experiences, of course, but you're going to be at a disadvantage if you don't believe in these kind of things. And if you're watching this, I'm sure you're probably not in the don't believe section, or maybe you are. Hopefully these studies can maybe open your eyes a bit. So I'm going to skip forward, and basically, he goes over a bunch of different experiments that were performed, and what they found was consistent with the idea that belief modulates magical efficiency, right? So your belief plays a big role in modulating your psi performance. So in the year 2000, Dean Radin launched a suite of psi tests online. So this involved, a way larger sample of data than most psi experiments. And that's one of the main criticisms of skeptics. It's like, not enough people were involved in this. So, and this experiment that he did was testing the idea of belief in psi and how it affects the results. So he said here, he launched an internet site called gotpsi.org. And from 2000 to 2017, the site collected more than 225 million trials from 350,000 people around the world. When a person signs up for the test, they select a nickname, and then they fill out a short questionnaire. And what they focus on is the user's response to a question on the degree to which they believe in psychic phenomenon. So they're actually they're doing a survey before each person actually participates in the experiment. They're asking them, to what degree do you believe in these kind of phenomenon? Which range from 5 levels, from none to certain. From the answer, we can see in belief modulated the average user's performance. So they found that it had a positive effect. If you believed in it, there was a benefit to the result. And he actually had a remote viewing. It's a simple one, but there was a simple remote viewing test on the website. So I'm going to read this part here. The other test we'll consider is a simple remote viewing task. The user sees a blank rectangle in the browser window and is asked to imagine a photograph that the computer would randomly select and later display in that same rectangle. After using remote viewing to imagine the photo, the user fills out 2 short questionnaires asking about various shapes and elements in the image, like arcs, squares, water, people, or plants. Performance on the task is evaluated by comparing how the user responded to those questions versus how the judges responded to the same questions while actually looking at the target photographs. Then the user's responses are compared to the judges' scores for all of the other photos that the computer might have selected. And there's a couple graphs here, but what they found was they did 1.2 million individual trials in the remote viewing test, and poorer remote viewing performance was associated with lower levels of belief and better performance with higher levels of belief. So the bottom line was the sheep get magic and the goats don't. Right? So taking this to a higher resolution, or in a different scenario, when it comes to remote viewing performance, what's possible? If you only believe that you can get words, or you only believe that it has to happen in a certain way, that's probably how you're going to end up experiencing those things, because, the belief systems modulate what's going to happen. They're like, barriers and doors that open and close that allow certain flows to happen. So, I spent many years operating in a very limited belief system. It wasn't until I opened up my mind to the possibility that there's more and more can be done, is that I started to experience those things and have to actually, go after trying to achieve them. So that's an important thing. There's a lot of naysayers, especially in the remote viewing community. There's a lot of people who are quick to tell you how something happens. I'm online. I see there's people who just start learning about remote viewing, and they're asking their beginner questions, and there's a million people that will come in and try and answer and tell you exactly how it works. So, And a lot of the time, they're dead wrong. So you got to really find out these things for yourself, do your research, um, keep an open mind, um, experience these things for yourself. Don't take people's word. Don't take people's word for these things, especially when it's people who have no track record, no nothing. Like, there's no point in even listening to those people. So yeah, hopefully that was interesting. Could I tell you anything about XRP? I don't do readings like that. I'm a remote viewer. Someone has to task me, and I work the target. So, we've done XRP a few times at Crypto Viewing. That work is published if you want to check that out. Isn't it unique to the individual? Well, sure, things are unique to the individual, but we're all the same species, right? I'm not special. I'm not special. I'm just another man on the earth, and I've spent time developing myself. That's what makes me different, but anyone else can do the same thing. So you got to change your belief systems if you want to get where you want to get. Don't let other people's belief systems limit you. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? But yeah, I really recommend that book, Dean Radin, Real Magic, and his other books. They're really, he does a good job of showing the data, because that's what the skeptics always want. All this data. It doesn't matter what you do in terms of performance. You could do the greatest remote viewing ever, and people are still going to doubt that, because you can't prove anything to anyone. They have to, a certain amount of information has to get to them, and then they agree that it's real or not. You know what I mean? You never really prove anything to anybody. So, I don't waste my time trying to prove stuff to people. So yeah, hopefully that was interesting. Crypto Viewing is the site where you can check us out if you want to see my professional work, along with, in my opinion, some of the best remote viewers doing it out there right now. Daz Smith, Dick Algar, Edward Reardon. We're really trying to, create a reality where remote viewers can actually do this and be respected and serve a community. And I think we have a good community over at Crypto Viewing. A lot of the subscribers on our private site, we have conversations on the forums. We're cross-referencing data. We're looking at the viewers' data and looking at the events that come. We're looking at the cryptos and seeing how there are graphs and the data that we produce turns out. So it's it's an interesting community, and in my opinion, it's cutting edge. Right? People are obsessed with all types of different things out there, but I'm obsessed with perception and human abilities. What can we do? What is there that we haven't discovered about ourselves yet? That's what's interesting to me. And if it's interesting to you, definitely check us out over at Crypto Viewing, patreon.com/cryptoviewing. My website, thefeedbackloop.info, of course, if you want to maybe try some practice targets. I just got it back up, so I'm going to be updating with more things on there. And if you'd like to donate to me directly, my information is here on the screen, PayPal, cryptos. So hopefully that was interesting. I'll be signing off for now. Peace and love, y'all. Thanks for watching.